Every good story has an unfolding plot, and for the Bible, the central storyline revolves around God's response to humanity's serpent and sin problem, his early promise to send a Savior to solve that problem. God created a universe that was, initially, very good, and he placed the first man and woman in a beautiful garden with lots of freedom and only one restriction. That one restriction was the knowledge or determination of good and evil, which is God's prerogative. By the time we reach Genesis 3, we encounter an angelic creature that was in Eden, the serpent, that has already rebelled, probably described later as the background source of the king of Tyre's pride and arrogance. After he portrays God as blocking human freedom and progress, and denies the promised penalty, Eve and Adam crossed the line. Their worldview changed, and so did their relationship with God and each other. In cursing the serpent for what he has done, God revealed that spiritual strife will unfold between their offspring. One of the woman's offspring, a single male, he, will bruise the serpent's head, although this Messianic figure will himself also receive a lesser wound in the encounter. Since the Messiah would be born of a woman, God gradually marked out the family line that would lead to him. While the Bible contains genealogies that serve different purposes, there are some that exist for no other reason than to record the lineage that will lead to this Messiah. Genesis 5 records the Messiah's lineage from Adam and Seth down to Noah, who had 3 sons. Genesis 11, 10 through 27, picks up the line with Noah's son Shem and takes it down to Terah, Abraham's father. Genesis 12 through 50 focuses on the continuation of the line through and God's promises to the fathers, or the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel. Before Jacob died, the Messiah's line was identified as proceeding through his son Judah. Ruth 4, 18 to 22, picks up the line with Judah's son Perez and takes it down to David. Matthew shows that Jesus is the rightful king of Israel by tracing his lineage from Abraham to David and then from Solomon to Joseph. Luke emphasizes Jesus as the Savior of humanity by tracing his line from Adam to David and then from Nathan to Mary. Along with the foundational messianic credentials of the lineage, Moses and the prophets provided more details over time. Some are pretty clear, and the Gospels identify a number of others in the Psalms and prophets, but here are some that are noteworthy. Deuteronomy 18 foretold that the Messiah would be a prophet like Moses. Psalm 2 foretells a conspiracy against the Lord and his Messiah, but he will be enthroned as king anyway, and then the nations will be warned to honor the Son before he comes in judgment. Psalm 22 describes the Anointed One being surrounded by mockers, hands and feet pierced, his garments divided, but afterwards the Gentiles will turn to Israel's God. Hosea 11:1 spoke of God's Son being called out of Egypt. Isaiah provided several important predictions. A virgin-born child who would demonstrate that God is with us. A child would be born who would rightly be called Mighty God and Everlasting Father. A wilderness forerunner will announce the Messianic shepherd's appearance. The Messiah will try to gather Israel, after which God's salvation would be offered to the nations or Gentiles. God's servant will be lifted up, marred, will sprinkle many nations, be despised and rejected by men, but provide a guilt offering for the sins of others, and then later exalted. His contemporary Micah foretold one who would be Israel's ruler, come forth from Bethlehem, but whose existence stretched back into eternity. Jeremiah foretold a righteous branch of David's line, who will be a wise, just, and righteous king, bringing salvation to Judah, and he will be our righteousness. Daniel provided several important predictions. 4 kingdoms, portrayed as sections of a statue, beginning with Neo-Babylon, will control the Middle East. The Messiah's kingdom will be established during the 4th. The same 4 kingdoms, now portrayed as beasts arising from the sea of humanity, will be followed by the Son of Man, ruling over an international kingdom of willing followers from heaven's throne. After 70 years of exile in Babylon, God will employ a period 7 times that long, 490 years, from a decree to restore Jerusalem to finish his focused work with the Jews and Jerusalem. The Messiah will appear around 26 AD, make a new covenant, and end temple worship, after which a people would come and destroy Jerusalem and its temple again. Zechariah offered several predictions. God will come and dwell in Israel's midst, and many Gentiles will join themselves to Israel's God and become his people. A high priest, Joshua, and followers represent the Messianic branch. Iniquity will be removed in a single day. The Messianic branch will be both priest and king, and those far off, Gentiles, will be involved in building the temple. Jerusalem's king will bring salvation, approaching the city on a donkey's colt. He will speak peace to the Gentiles, have authority over the whole earth, and his covenant blood will free the righteous from the place of the dead. A spirit of grace will be poured out on Jerusalem when they see God pierced and mourn for him, at which time a fountain of forgiveness will be opened up. A unique day is coming when it will be dark in the midst of the day. Then living waters will flow outward from Jerusalem, and the Lord will be king over all the earth. Malachi foretold the coming forerunner to prepare the people, and then the Messiah will come to his temple as God's messenger, bringing a new covenant. When Jesus appeared, he was descended through the correct lineage and born to a faithful woman in the right city and at the right time. He did wonderful works that pointed to his deity, was wounded to the point of death to deal with the serpent and our sin problem, then was raised from death and seen alive again by over 500 eyewitnesses to authenticate his claims. All of the prophecies mentioned were fulfilled in connection with Jesus' first coming. The early disciples and the Samaritan woman testify to the first century expectation of a coming Messiah. There are good and sufficient reasons to believe that Jesus is the Messiah promised in the Old Testament writings. The question now is, what will you do about it?